Hi, my name's Dan, and this video is one in a series that I'm doing about missions in the design of computer games. And in this particular one, we're going to look at some design considerations. We're not going to deal with the mechanics of missions in games. That's going to come in another video in the series. Okay. So Dan's rule one of game design is that it's all about the player experience. What does that mean? We're going to translate this into the thought of player-centered mission design when it comes to missions. And in fact, I'm going to invoke some of my other rules. So rule 4 is to remember to use the challenge risk reward chain. So I guess there's some questions here that we can ask ourselves about missions. So if you have a mission, does it challenge the player? Missions that are too easy are arguably boring. What are the risks? So if you're doing risk-based design for missions, you've got to think about what is the player expending when they have this mission. Have they got a risk of failure, or is it just time they're going to need to invest, or they're going to need to invest thought if they're solving a puzzle, for example? And then, are the rewards suitable? And I guess it's fairly clear that if you've got major milestone challenges in your game, you probably should have major milestone rewards. And we'll talk in another video about making your missions serve the game and the game progress. But you probably want to do those specific milestone challenges that are particularly difficult for the player should be the ones where they get major rewards that give them progress for the game. So rule 2 is give the player choices. I guess there's a couple of ways that you can do choices in missions at least. So one of them at the very basic level is give them the choice of which mission or missions to do in which order. And I'm going to do a separate video on the concept of progress and linearity using missions, so see that. The other one is the choices in how to solve missions, and I think that this is a particularly important thing to talk about. So some missions that you get in games are quite prescriptive. They give a method. They say, stand here, use this gun, kill these enemies, kill this particular person, or achieve a particular thing in a particular way. And the problem with missions like this is that it gives little in the way of practical choice. What it does do is it tests the player's hand-eye coordination, potentially, or reactions, but it doesn't require any thinking in that sense. So I don't like missions like this. I think they're bad. I think they're a bad design often for games. And also, they tend to be missions on which the player gets stuck. Missions where players can't progress are often the problem is that they're too prescriptive. So I prefer open missions. So a way to achieve this is to give the success criteria for the mission based on the results, not on the method. So you're not specifying how the player should achieve their aim, you're just giving them the aims that they have to achieve. And some games do this better than others. In some games, this can be very good indeed. I tend to use the phrase tools and challenges, which is an approach to this. You give a player a set of things that they can use and then give them something to achieve using those tools. And if you divorce the idea of the challenge from the specifics of the tools, then this gives a much more open approach for the player to use. So it encourages player creativity, it encourages them to try different things and different ways of doing things. It gives the extreme the potential for emergent gameplay, and emergent gameplay is a good thing. I probably will have a video talking about that specifically at some point. I think it's much better There are some things that you need to look out for, though, with open missions and this approach to things. So one is that if you get into the realm where emergent gameplay is possible, you're also potentially getting to the area where there may be exploits and there may be killer ways to solve a mission that just make it really easy that you've not thought of. So you need to play test. Yeah, this is an obvious thing for games anyway. You need to play test games, but open missions particularly need play testing probably with a variety of people to get you a variety of approaches to see what people try and how people approach them. You need to make sure that there is at least one tactic that can work for a mission. So you need to test that there is at least one way of getting success. And I guess depending on the nature of your game, you need to check whether it's possible for a player to progress through the rest of the game in such a way that when they get to a mission like this, they don't have the tools that they need, or they don't have the abilities that they need to be able to pass this mission. Now, how much importance you lay on this depends on the nature of your game, and it depends on how you approach missions as well. See my other thing about linearity. If you've got it set up so that it's very linear, and if they can get into such a position that they can't progress, then they're stuck. If it's more open, and so you can choose which missions to do and come back to the mission later, then this is more likely to happen in that situation, but it's less likely to be a problem because the player can go away, do some other things, and get themselves new capabilities and come back to this mission. So it somewhat depends on the structure. So rule 3 is give the player surprises, and I guess the way that translates to missions is particularly thinking about variety and giving the player a variety of different things to do. So what I'm going to do now for the rest of this video, this is my last point, but I'm just going to take a little bit of time over it, is I'll have a look at some mission archetypes. This isn't intended to be an exhaustive list. You will always find missions that don't fit into any of these archetypes, but these concepts cover quite a lot of missions. I'm going to quickly go through some archetypes with some illustrations, and then I'm going to talk about modifiers to missions. We'll come to that in a minute or so. So here we go into our list. First one, collect 100 coins. So every one that I've got listed here, if there's something that could be varied or changed, I've put an asterisk against it. So I guess I should have asterisked 100 as well, because the number isn't important. But in your environment, you might have a number of usually fairly easy to find collectibles. And the example I've got here is Super Mario Sunshine, where you've got coins that you're picking up, and you get something for picking up all 100 coins that are in this space that you've got. And these are often quite useful missions for early on if you're reusing the same environment, because it encourages the player to explore. Another one is to collect a smaller number of things, and so in this situation we've got 5 coins in harder to reach places. Again, this encourages exploration, but they're kind of fewer and far between, and this is again Super Mario Sunshine, and the red coins are a good example of this. Get from A to B, or from wherever to wherever. So a lot of games, actually, that is the sole point of the game. This is one of the Tomb Raider games, and the Tomb Raider games are all about getting from the entrance of a level to the exit of a level. But you can do this within open world games as well. You can have get from here to get somewhere else. Race a bear on sledges. Race anybody on anything or with any kind of vehicle or running. I just happened to pick an example from way back, an N64 game called Banjo-Kazooie, which I found particularly difficult at the time, racing this bear. Get to the top or get to some hard-to-reach space. This is one of the Mirror's Edge games, which is all about the free running parkour aspects of things. So this is definitely the focus for games like this, but you can use that kind of idea obviously in other games as well. Solve a puzzle. Some games are very much based on puzzles. Portal was entirely puzzle based, and it was all about solving the puzzle and getting to the next level and moving on. Defeat a boss. I'm not a huge fan of boss fights. I think there are particular problems with them, but some people love them. Kill 13 goblins or get 4 wolf pelts. So a list of things or entities that you've got to defeat or kill, or a list of drops from them that you've got to get. And back in my days of playing World of Warcraft, a lot of the missions look like this. Here's a kind of sample list of missions from World of Warcraft. And the numbers on the left are not the number of the mission, they're level of the mission. But you can see several of these ones. There's one in the middle there, Razormane Geomancer slain, Razormane Defender slain. You've got a list of the ones that you've got to get. And then the third one of those is Queenie Snout's Tusk, which is a drop that you get from killing a particular boss. And you can see that some of these are based on defeating things. Some of these are based on getting drops. Sometimes these drops have a random number or random time when they'll drop, and so you don't know exactly how many you're going to have to kill before you get them. And this was a very strong archetype for World of Warcraft at one point in time, but they got away with it because the different enemies, there was such a variety of tactics that you needed to use to kill them. Fly through or any other kind of progress through rings or some kind of checkpoints in order. Flying seems to be particularly difficult for some of these. Learning to fly a plane, going through rings, and flying often seems to use rings of some kind for this. Pull off a trick combo or any kind of combo or something that's particular to things like the skateboarding games and extreme sports games, but there are things that you can take from that for other games as well. Escort Fred to his home or escort somebody to somewhere. Escort quests are an archetype that are quite often used in MMOs, and they have particular frustrations at points. Minigames. So some games abound with minigames as missions. Here's one from Donkey Kong 64, if I remember correctly. There's one where you have to use this snapper to get these beavers into a hole in the middle of the barrel. Thoroughly frustrating. So I'm going to move on to some task modifiers now. So those are some archetypes. You could pick them off the shelf. You can obviously plug your own particulars into those. But you can also use some of these missions and add some extra elements to them. So again, here's just a sample, a few of some elements that could be used. So you could use a time limit. Here's again from GTA Online, a mission from GTA Online with a time limit down in the right-hand corner there, while being attacked. And there's a lot of games, there's a lot of combat, and so this can happen naturally as part of what you're asking the player to do. Whilst the player or something the player is controlling is vulnerable. So here's a classic quest from GTA 3. You've got some explosives in this car, and you've got to get it to a garage. And driving in the GTA games was always fraught with crashes, and so you had to be careful to not blow up before you get the car to the destination. But you've got a time limit as well, as you can see up there on the right-hand side. You might have a limited resource, maybe ammo is one of those, or you might be in particularly difficult circumstances. Here's an area in Skyrim with lots of snow, and I seem to remember trying to cross this bridge was particularly difficult because of the snow and the weather that you got. And the final one that I've got is in a hard-to-drive vehicle. Again, doesn't necessarily have to be vehicles, but something that resists your attempts to get from A to B. And this is a slightly flippant example from one of the Carmageddon games where you've lost the front of your vehicle. But thinking back to GTA games, there were sometimes bouncy vehicles or situations where you've got a slow vehicle or a hard-to-control vehicle. So that's a quick look through some of the design considerations that you might want to take into account when you're looking at mission design for games. So that's it from me for now.